With us now is former Israeli Air Base Commander Brigadier General Relik Shafir. Thank you for joining us today here at ILTV.
My pleasure.
Israel says Hezbollah's presence in southern Lebanon violates the ceasefire agreement. Does Hezbollah see it the same way? And how much does the Lebanese government actually how much control does the Lebanese government actually have in these areas?
Not much of a control in the southern Lebanon area. And what we're seeing now is kind of a conflict of attrition between Hezbollah and Israel, where Israel is weakening Hezbollah as much as it can so that the Lebanese government has the will and the ability and to move forthright to actually overtake the Hezbollah strong points in southern Lebanon. This is difficult because part of the Lebanese army is made up of Shia soldiers who sympathize, obviously, with Hezbollah. So it's really problematic, and it may take quite a while as we strike and churn Hezbollah, not just in southern Lebanon, but also in the Bekaa Valley, in the routes where they bring in personnel and weapons, so that the Lebanese army and Lebanese government gains more and more confidence in its ability to take over from Hezbollah without going into civil war. This is a long stretch that we are only at the beginning of.
To what extent is the Lebanese army able or willing to confront the Hezbollah activities along the border?
Probably not very willing or even not very able. And that is the reason why it's a long stretch until Israel tires out Hezbollah by daily harassing the Hezbollah militants who loiter around South Lebanon. And as more and more weapon caches are discovered, bomb them out. And so the Lebanese see that the future is in the government exercising its sovereignty, not just in South Lebanon. So that's why I call it a war of attrition until Hezbollah budges away and understands that it cannot have its way. Iran is supporting them, but obviously in a much more difficult channeling than it had before. So let's brace ourselves.
Can you share a little more with us about this wall that Lebanon is accusing Israel of building and complaining that it's violating the borders? What can you say about that? What is Israel's stance on that?
Well, there have been many years that Israel and Lebanon could not reach a final agreement on where exactly the border runs between Israel and Lebanon. It dates back to 1948. It was drawn on a map with a not too sharp a pencil. So there were no computers at the time. So if you're talking about the width of the pencil on a map, then you can argue where the border actually runs. And there may need to be a third side arbitration on where exactly is the border. So both sides have a claim on where exactly the border is, but Israel is not going to wait for an arbitration and erects a cemented wall so that there will be no clear firing site from the Lebanese side into Israeli villages along the border. That is the idea. And so this will go on until the reality on the ground is established, such that the Lebanese, even if we do withdraw from areas close to the border on the Lebanese side, will not be able to have direct sight to Israeli villages and make them feel more safe.
So when the IDF does destroy infrastructure and seize weapons inside of Lebanon, how does that affect the risk of escalation? Are we closer to a broader conflict, or is this still considered contained?
My personal view is that Hezbollah under no way will try to fire at Israel because it knows we have complete superiority over southern Lebanon, and they're doomed to fail because they have the number of rockets that they have, and the quality of the rockets and the training of their people has been reduced to such an extent that they will pay dearly if they open fire, and they also risk that the Lebanese army will check them. And so I think they're not going to create any provocation, and it's going to continue the way it is now.
Israel, and speaking we've been speaking of rearming, Hamas is reportedly moving advanced weapons into African states and Yemen for future use. How serious of a threat is this, and what does this tell us about Hamas's long-term strategy?
Well, as long as Hamas is not able to move those weapons into Gaza itself, as it did in the pre-war days, as we control actually the Rafah crossing between Egypt and Gaza, they will have to dig very deep and long tunnels in that area in order to smuggle weapons, and I think it's not going to happen. So they're actually getting themselves prepared, not for a war, but for a conflict with whoever runs Gaza, be it the Egyptians or even the Palestinian Authority, so that they don't look like they've given up. It's also part of the face-saving maneuver. And they've offered, by the way, the Palestinian Authority to keep their weapons cache locked up so that it could be used at a later stage, and the Palestinian Authority had not agreed to this. So it's a last-ditch maneuver. That's what it's called in air warfare. Last-ditch maneuver to try and improve their situation with the discussions that will be coming up on who runs Gaza and who has the power. I'll just add that obviously, under no circumstances, unfortunately, we cannot take away their Kalashnikovs or hand grenades, what we call light arms, because we're not going to look under every bed and in the sands of tents all over Gaza, where there are about 2.3 million people. So this is unrealistic, but we're talking about the heavy weapons, let's say from tank killer rockets and upwards.
And regarding the F-35s and Saudi, and how is Israel reacting to potentially Saudi also having access to F-35s from the U.S.?
Not just Turkey, but also Turkey, not just Saudi Arabia, or in there. I think in alluding to the previous speaker, Israel has drawn itself through acts of not understanding the power game that the United States is playing, and also for internal political reasons, pressures from the right-wing extremists that turned Israeli diplomacy into a limbo state. And in that limbo state, slowly, for the past 2 years, most of the European countries have turned against the Israeli activities in Gaza, the Democrats in the United States, and by now a lot of Republicans as well. So we've lost a lot of power and leverage over what is going to happen. And the United States has decided that Israel, that's my understanding, cannot make a decision on what's good for it, and the United States decided it will make the decisions. The place in Kiryat Gat, where they've stationed their command, is taking the place of the Kiryat in Tel Aviv. And slowly but surely, they're pushing Israel out of the equation in Gaza. And we can see this with the argument in the United Nations.
Yeah,
So
thank you.
unfortunately, we've been, I would say, channeled into this position where we're no longer major players in this game, but the United States wants to create a Middle East that supports the United States policies towards Russia, Iran, and China. And Israel has to get its act together and understand, we have to understand the limits of power and execution of power in Gaza in the West Bank.
Thank you so much for joining us and sharing your insights.
Thank you.